It started as just another shaky smartphone video, the kind millions of passengers upload every day. A bored traveler pointed their phone toward the oval window, catching the wingtip glinting in the early light. You could hear the soft thrum of engines, the rustle of pretzels opening, the captain's distant voice about reaching cruising altitude. Nothing special, just another flight. But then, 23 seconds into the recording, something shifted. Two shadows cut across the horizon. Sleek, fast, unmistakable. F-22 Raptors. They slid into view like predators breaking the surface of the sea, gray triangles catching the sun, contrails streaming behind them like brushstrokes on blue canvas. The cabin filled with whispers. Someone laughed nervously. "Are we in trouble?" a voice muttered. The phone jiggled as the passenger tried to keep both jets in frame. And then, faint but clear, came a voice from the row behind. A woman's voice, low and steady, with a calmness that felt wrong against the growing panic. "Looks like they're early." Several passengers turned. The camera tilted just enough to catch her reflection in the window. Seat 24A. Dark hair tied in a simple knot, face half hidden beneath a hood, her posture impossibly relaxed, as if fighter escorts were no more unusual than turbulence. Her tone wasn't surprise. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. The man seated beside her, suit jacket folded, tie loosened, a juice box balanced precariously on his tray table, frowned. He had been busy trying to keep his 8-year-old daughter occupied with cartoons and headphones, and now he blinked at his neighbor in disbelief. "Excuse me," he asked. She didn't look at him. Instead, she reached calmly into the seatback pocket, drew out her boarding pass, and held it like a badge for the nearest flight attendant. Her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "Call sign. Valkyrie." The attendant froze. For a heartbeat, it seemed like maybe she'd misheard. But then recognition hit. You could see it in her widening eyes. And just as if choreographed, both Raptors tilted their wings in perfect unison. A salute. Passengers gasped. The phone trembled in the filmer's hands. The man in the blazer dropped the juice box, orange liquid seeping across his tray as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. "And Valkyrie," she simply nodded once, as though acknowledging old friends. By the time the plane landed, the video had already uploaded to 3 different platforms. Within hours, it spread across continents. Overnight, #C24A trended worldwide. Millions demanded to know, who was Valkyrie? Why would America's most elite fighter pilots salute her? And why, of all places, was she sitting quietly in economy class? Daniel Cross had boarded that flight with one hope: silence. As CEO of a company the press liked to call the spine of Silicon Valley, his life was nothing but noise. Stock tickers, board meetings, mergers, deadlines. His phone vibrated like a second pulse, tethering him to a world that never allowed him to stop. But Emma, his daughter, 8 years old with eyes too big for her face, had asked him a question the night before that he couldn't shake. "Daddy, can I start forever with you? Not just weekends?" He'd stood frozen in her doorway, briefcase still in hand, while she sat cross-legged on the carpet, toys scattered like a kingdom around her. She didn't mean it as poetry. She meant she was tired of half-promises and custody calendars. And though Daniel's assistant had warned him not to bring her on the trip, "You can't juggle investors and juice boxes, sir," he couldn't say no. Not this time. So here they were, Daniel in C-24B, trying to finish a merger report while Emma leaned against his arm. Tablet balanced on her lap. He wanted this to be a normal flight. Just a father and daughter sharing pretzels and maybe, if he was lucky, a chance to imagine what forever might look like. Instead, fate had placed Valkyrie beside him. Emma was the first to see it, really. Kids always were. While adults grumbled about delays and Wi-Fi, she pressed her nose against the window, leaving tiny smudges of breath as she whispered, "Daddy, look, birds with teeth." Daniel had glanced out just in time to see the Raptors slice through the clouds. He opened his mouth to reassure her, to say they were just escorts, nothing to worry about, but then the woman beside them spoke. That voice, calm, knowing, the way the pilots responded to her like knights to a queen. Emma's eyes went wide. "Daddy, she's important." And Daniel realized his daughter was right. By the time the wheels touched down in Washington, D.C., the video had racked up 1 million views. By the time passengers shuffled toward baggage claim, it had climbed past 5. And by midnight, cable news anchors were already filling airtime with it. Who was the woman in seat 24A? One network demanded. Why would F-22 pilots break formation to salute her? Asked another. Clips ran in slow motion, circling her reflection in the window, enhancing shadows, speculating wildly. Conspiracy forums lit up. Was she a covert general? A decorated ace? A spy defected from somewhere? The guesses grew more outlandish by the hour. What no one guessed was the truth, that Valkyrie had never expected to be noticed again. Daniel Cross hated headlines. He was usually in them. Tech blogs dissected his company's every move, business journals chased rumors of his mergers, tabloids whispered about his failed marriage. Now he was back in them, dragged unwillingly into Valkyrie's orbit. Reporters had already pieced together the passenger manifest, pairing grainy airport photos with captions. Daniel Cross, billionaire CEO, seated beside mystery woman. It was a nightmare. He wanted quiet. He wanted to protect Emma. And yet, something about the way the Raptors had tilted in salute wouldn't leave his mind. Who was she? The question gnawed at him, long after they'd left the plane. Emma, however, saw no mystery. To her, it was simple. She's a hero, she said with childlike certainty, swinging her backpack as they walked through the terminal. Daniel adjusted his grip on her small hand. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Pilots don't salute people for no reason. Her voice carried the absolute confidence only children had. She must have done something amazing. He wanted to argue, to explain that heroes weren't real, that the world was complicated, that sometimes people who looked important weren't what they seemed. But Emma's eyes glowed in a way he hadn't seen in years, like the world had cracked open and shown her something worth believing in. So instead, he said nothing. Valkyrie kept her hood up as she moved through the terminal, duffel slung over one shoulder. She had learned, over years of covert deployments and classified missions, how to disappear in a crowd. But disappearing wasn't possible anymore. Not with a million strangers replaying her face, dissecting her silence. The call sign she thought she'd buried had found her again. It wasn't just a word. Valkyrie. It carried years of combat sorties, lost comrades, victories carved into the sky at Mach speed. It carried secrets the public would never know, victories that could never be named. And it carried ghosts. The salute from the Raptors was a message, not just respect, but recognition. Somewhere, someone had decided she could no longer stay in the shadows. Daniel found himself scanning the crowd until he spotted her again. Part of him wanted to turn away. But curiosity was a powerful drug, and she carried an aura of gravity that pulled him closer. Emma spotted her too. Daddy, there she is. She whispered loudly, tugging his sleeve. Can we say hi? No, Daniel started, but his daughter was already weaving through rolling suitcases and tired travelers. Valkyrie noticed the girl before Daniel could reach her. She crouched slightly, meeting Emma's wide-eyed stare with surprising gentleness. You're very brave, Valkyrie said softly. Emma blinked. Me? No, I'm not. You saw them first, didn't you? The birds with teeth. Emma nodded slowly. That takes sharp eyes. Bravery isn't always about fighting. Sometimes it's about seeing clearly when others don't. By the time Daniel caught up, Emma was smiling in a way he hadn't seen since her last birthday. He opened his mouth to apologize for the intrusion, but Valkyrie only gave him a look, one sharp enough to halt the words. For a heartbeat, their worlds collided. The CEO who lived by numbers, the pilot who lived by instincts, and the child who saw through both. Then Valkyrie rose, hoisted her duffel, and disappeared into the river of people. That night, Daniel tucked Emma into bed at the hotel. She clutched her stuffed rabbit, eyes heavy with sleep, but her last words before drifting off lingered in the silence. Daddy, do you think we'll see her again? He wanted to say no. To say Valkyrie was a stranger, that they'd shared nothing more than a flight. But somehow, deep down, he knew the opposite was true. Yes, he whispered finally, though she was already asleep. I think we will. And as he sat alone with the glow of his laptop, watching news clips dissecting every frame of the viral video, Daniel realized something terrifying. Whether he wanted it or not, his life had been pulled into her orbit. And once you stepped into Valkyrie's sky, there was no going back.